I started doing product management before product management was fun, cool, or even had a name. So let's be honest, financial services is not necessarily known for being first adopters on technology. We've seen a revolution, right? We've seen everything about incremental delivery, about being agile, not necessarily the agile methodology itself, but the ability to have new information and change our paths. And the successful product manager is the one that gets those phone calls and gets that feedback and gets that opportunity to step in and see if we can help. Don't forget, people are people, right? At the end of the day, the only reason why we build technology is so that people leverage it.
Hi, today I have with me Eglae Recchia, and she is the Chief Product Officer of Berkadia. So, first of all, I want to say congratulations, Eglae. What an amazing accomplishment of being one of the best Chief Product Officers of 2025.
Thank you. I'm extremely proud but humbled to be in that position.
Well, it's much deserved, and I can't wait to hear more about your story. But before we do that, why don't we go ahead and have you introduce yourself? I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about Berkadia, the products, what you do for them, and then anything that led you up to the journey of where you are currently in your career would be interesting.
Sure. So as the Chief Product Officer, I am responsible for product strategy, all that comes with product management, as well as design and financial modeling. Funnily enough, I've been there for about 2.5 years. And it's actually kind of a great continuation of the first 15 years of so of my career. I always say, and Renee, you said something similar when we were talking earlier, that I started doing product management before product management was fun, cool, or even had a name. So I started as head of strategy or marketing and data analytics. Every title that you think you could have back then I had. But ever since graduating from MIT Sloan with my MBA, I have built a path in technology and specifically on financial services and technology together, that conjunction. And so I've been doing what I do for the last 15 years or so at different financial firms, big and small, Goldman Sachs, Freddie Mac, and like you mentioned, Berkadia, and always focused on just trying to solve people's problems, regardless of the title or the role name that I had. So been a while doing this, love everything about it, especially more than anything that it allows me to fulfill my curiosity and being able to ask questions of folks, which is my favorite thing to do.
I love it. So, what exactly does Berkadia do?
Yeah, they're a mortgage. They are in the commercial real estate industry. So they help individuals or companies that are looking to buy or sell commercial real estate do that and usually sell it to our GSEs, Fannie and Freddie and HUD, as well as service those mortgages. So mostly focused on multifamily, but actually it's multi-asseted. Um, and it's a joint venture between Berkshire Hathaway and Jefferies. And so it's privately held. It's an amazing company, tons of great culture, and really with a willingness to look into the future unencumbered into what commercial real estate and financial services could provide to people.
Amazing. And your role as a chief product officer, what does that look like in a mortgage slash commercial real estate
Yeah, I'll talk
household?
broadly about commercial real estate, given the fact that that's where I spent a big chunk of my career in general. And so a lot of what I do is both internal and external products. So internally, what are the products that we want our our individuals at Berkadia to use and leverage, as well as externally, how do our clients interact with technology that we own or leverage? And so I would say my team probably does 70% of internal products of exactly what it is that we want people to leverage when they're talking to clients. How do we give tools and information and insights to our internal users so that they can leverage that when they're meeting with their clients to show, the best face that Berkadia can have there. And then on the way back, when our clients interact with us, how do we make sure that they're having kind of a one Berkadia type of experience with us and with technology and innovation that it's truly moving forward in the commercial real estate space versus something that doesn't differentiate us. So we spend a lot of time and effort making sure that not only do we provide the best to the bright individuals that we have inside, but that we actually move the industry forward with some of our innovation that our clients leverage themselves.
Yeah, what an exciting role for a very exciting space, and some amazing investors in terms of the partnership. So you obviously have had a storied career. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sure you have a great lens on how the role specifically of product management has morphed. And I'm thinking really through two lenses. One is obviously the tool landscape, what's available to you to make decisions has clearly changed. But maybe in terms of also, how are you held accountable? Has that changed? Does your role at at the C suite, has that changed? Like, I'd love your perspective on both of those.
Yeah, and I would say yes and no to change. I feel like product management is one of those industries or roles that if you look at it in detail, change happens almost daily. If you do the 10,000-foot view and you look at what it is, you might be like, oh, it doesn't change that often. We're really just absorbing information, synthesizing, adding analytics or other types of supporting data and making decisions. And so when you look at it like that, people have been solving people's problems for as long as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
How we do that or the tools that we have is really what creates a very dynamic type of space for product managers. Like I mentioned at the beginning, when I started, it wasn't even called product management. I was doing things like A/B testing or uh, in a way creating stories when I first started my career. We didn't have those names. We didn't call it that. We didn't have the tools like Jira or ADO or anything else to call it like, oh, I wrote a story that now in a backlog that somebody will pick up. An engineer will help me develop it in a very quick and fast way. We had projects. Everything was project based. It was 2, 3 years to go. Um, it was we made a decision and we're sticking to it and we're going after it. And the beautiful thing is that in the last decade and a half, at least in the industry that I'm in, which let's be honest, financial services is not necessarily known for being first adopters on technology. um, we've seen a revolution, right? We've seen everything about incremental delivery, about being agile, not necessarily the agile methodology itself, but the ability to have new information and change our paths. We have had new tools come up for the Jiras, the ADOs, the chisels, all these tools that actually help us give me information. You think something as simple as like Google Analytics, right? Knowing when a person does or doesn't do in the product that I've created. It used to be about surveys and feedback, and now all that can actually be on top of really, really good and insightful and detailed information. So I think product management as a career where you're there to solve people's problems by asking questions is the same thing that it's been for the last couple of decades. I think how we do it and the empowerment that we have within a company has shifted tremendously, right? I there's no doors you can't knock on as a product manager. There's no nobody that will say no. You are seen as truly you are helping somebody through a challenge. And I always tell my product managers in my team, I'm like, the way I know we've done it right, it's not when somebody comes and tells you, hey, I wish this product did X, Y, and Z, but it's when somebody comes to you and says, I have a problem. I don't even know if it's a technology to be solved problem or if it's just a problem or if you can help me or not. But I have a problem and I want to talk to somebody about that. And the successful product manager is the one that gets those phone calls and gets that feedback and gets that opportunity to step in and see if we can help.
Hi, this is Renee Niemi, Resident Chief Product Officer at Products Account. We're taking a quick break to chat with a friend of the show, Mighty Capital. GP of Mighty Capital, SC Mawadi, is here with me. SC, for listeners who don't know yet, what makes your approach different?
We're a product first venture firm, so we back enterprise founders where product is the growth engine. Our edge is what we call the CPO alpha effect, which is a data backed framework that helps us source, diligence, and help companies scale faster. That's how we backed category winners like Amplitude, Airbnb, Grok, and more.
Yeah, and the results speak for themselves. You celebrated your sixth IPO with Netscope recently, right?
We're so proud of the founders. And you're right, the goal is compounding product excellence. So over time, about 1 in 5 of our companies becomes an outlier.
Yeah, and you don't just write a check either.
Right. We plug teams into product, design partners, and our CPO fellows who roll up their sleeves on roadmap, pricing, and go to market so that teams hit milestones faster and raise on better terms.
So, if I'm a founder building a B2B product, how do I engage?
Well, email me at sc@mighty.capital or message me on LinkedIn or X, and I'm happy to connect.
Awesome. Love it. Learn more at mighty.capital. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I also love your perspective that no matter how much things change, the fundamentals actually really do stay the same. It's just, the speed, the tools, the accuracy, the hit rate, if you will,
Exactly.
is all what is really improved over the years. And it's so funny, you and I really do share that lens of what they didn't. I was doing everything they call product management in that days, but that's not what they called me. So it's been so much fun to watch. I'm a big believer in culture and company culture, and you mentioned what a wonderful culture you work in. So I'd love to spend some time on that. How does your culture affect your product? How would you describe it? And the lens that I'm particularly interested in, but open to anything you think is relevant, is how does that drive priority setting, priority disruption, and big decisions in kind of the day-to-day product world.
Yeah, I've been extremely lucky in working in companies where I've had I guess, the opportunity perhaps to choose them because of the culture that they share with me. So the idea of working hard but being human has always attracted me to many of the companies that I've worked on, and they're very strong companies culturally, I would say. And so I consider myself extremely lucky in the sense that I've always found the places that I worked in to truly have that culture and develop it in such a way. But I would say as a product manager, when you think about it, eh, some of the main things that you need to create is kind of work safety, right? As product, we will make mistakes. That's the whole point, is we will need to learn, and the best way to learn is to get feedback, whether it's good or bad. And some of that feedback might be, hey, that didn't work. This is why, and we need to change it. And so the safety of being able to try new things and to fail is completely necessary in whichever environment you go into, whatever company you're into. Understanding the business value, right? The business priorities truly drive or should drive technology and product priorities. So if the business is trying to increase revenue and all I focus on is decreasing costs, there's going to be a mismatch. Even though it sounds like the same, it's actually not the same. And so making sure that the priorities, the objectives, the key results of the company are really transmitted, and that as a product person you can influence where they're going is humongous as you try to make those decisions. I always say that when I started, I was on the strategy role before my product management life, and I would make one decision every 2.5 years, right? Like, oh, we should invest in commercial real estate investment trusts, right? Like, I made a decision, we stick to it for 3 years, we see how it went. As a product manager, regardless of what level you're in, you make 100 decisions a day. And so you need that ability to be agile, to listen, to learn, and to probably change your mind with new information, which is one of the best things. And from a culture perspective, you need support for that, right? Like, it, one of the most important things to say in product management is, hey, we decided to change the color of the sky from green to blue because we have learned these three new things that we didn't know 6 months ago. We tried to learn everything 6 months ago, but now that we've done it, we've learned these three key facts that will affect us. And for me, the company culture, the ability to have those open conversations, the ability to learn from the individuals that know it best is one of the most important places or spaces to be successful long term.
Yeah. So definite picked up the message super clear. It feels like there's a little bit of, risk taking in your culture, and there's safety associated with that risk. When you evaluate roadmaps, for instance, are you more sales centered? Are you more vision oriented, or are you more like, ROI oriented? Like, is there an orientation to your culture that you start, you is your underpinning?
Yeah, we currently use more of the ROI mentality.
Mm,
What type of investments do we need to see the results that we're looking for? I think in product in general, the main question you need to be able to answer is what's the value? And what's the value not just to you, but to the individuals that are eventually going to leverage the product that you're putting out there. Many times, again, we think about revenue as being the main driver because it's usually has one of the biggest things, but as a CPO that's done a lot of work for internal companies mostly, right? Efficiencies or just creating insights is almost, if not more important than anything else. But more, I think more than a metric, what's extremely important is transparency, the
mm,
ability to communicate what you expect to have as a result and whether or not you're going to hit the timelines that you promise to get that result. And so we are ROI focused. But I would say the majority of the brain power goes into objectives and key results. Very high level, how will we affect and bring value? When we look
definite.
into our specific initiatives, ROI is one of the many, many things that we bring together.
Doesn't surprise me at all, given that you're in the financial
Correct.
services business. So the fact that you would be centered that way actually makes a ton of sense. Now, do you feel like the fact that you're centered this way, are there products and risks that you would take that you have to put on the back burn because you have that lens? Do you feel like it limits you in any way?
So I feel like it could. One of the things that we've done well is we keep on talking and we create spaces, and not only at Berkadia, but in other companies I've been at, you create a space. You say, hey, 20% of my team's bandwidth will actually be dedicated to experimentation. And you can define experimentation based on where you're at, but more than anything, it doesn't necessarily need to meet, quote unquote, the ROI number that all the other initiatives need to meet. And instead, it's meant to be, let's try something, let's see if it works. And if it works, let's see what type of value. Secondly, I said this a little bit before, but there's a lot about educating, not only educating your own team and the people that you work with, but the business that you work with to try to explain that sometimes it's not about the ROI percentage or how many years it will take to pay back, quote unquote, what you've invested, but it is also about the experience. Like, does it feel better to log into product A versus product B for me to do my job every day? And if the answer is yes, even though the value might be hard to capture, there is value there, right? We always use the example of Netflix and how when you start binge watching something, it tells you, hey, do you want to skip the credits because you've been here for an hour and you've seen three of these episodes, and you say yes. I mean, we should talk to the Netflix CPO one day, but that there's probably not a direct correlation between the revenue or somebody new signing on to Netflix because of that metric. But I can guarantee that as a user of Netflix, it's one of my favorite features. And so a lot of our work as well as product managers, especially at my level, is not just about making the decisions of what should and shouldn't be in our roadmap, but also educating why sometimes it's good to take a risk, even though the math may not be necessarily there. Now, you can't do that with 100% of your roadmap because a we do have a need and a responsibility to bring value to the organization that we sit in. But you can do that with the right guardrails.
Yeah, I mean, and I love, I like that you've kind of guarded, you defined it with a number, 20%, but it sets expectations, right? And then I would imagine, do you check it on a periodic basis to make sure your innovation bucket or your experimentation bucket continues to be a decent size, just so you don't fall behind that way?
Yeah, and I think it also changes a little bit, right? When we started with AI, I mean, AI has been around forever, but the new wave of AI that's truly transforming how we do things every day, it's no longer 20%, right? Like it might be 20% of people, hands to keyboard, but mentally it's a lot bigger for me. Like I spend a lot more time there than I ever did before. And do I know for a fact that it's going to bring revenue into the company? That's really hard to know right now. But I want to try new things because we all agree there's value there. So maybe that 20% grows to 25 or 30% for the last 6 months. And then, 9 months from now, we see, hey, there's a ton of value there. Well, then AI is no longer in that bucket. AI is just in the way we do things and one of the many solutions that we can leverage. And so that bucket suddenly goes to 10% for a few months. And so there's a flow that I think the 20% is the number that we aim for when we look long term and we look backwards and when we try to plan forwards. But it's not necessarily that we have to be stuck to that number. It's more about that building that trust with the business to say, trust me when I tell you that if something fails, I will take responsibility, that I don't want to invest any more money in it. But if something is successful, I want to make sure that we don't stop investing in it simply because we haven't had that conversation yet.
Yeah, what I particularly appreciate in the lens that you're applying is your own time and where you put your personal cycles. I think that that's really strategic for chief product officers because there's one thing about your money and your people resources, but your personal investment. Like I can see how that makes a lot of sense given where we are with AI, that you're actually, overweighting your own personal time because it is so disruptive, right? It's such a disruptive change.
Right.
So awesome. Well, speaking of AI, I would love your perspective. I'd love to spend a little more time on that. When you kind of think about, and we talked earlier about, how the role of product leaders changed or not changed, depending on the lens you use. But we didn't really get down to the product manager themselves. I would love your perspective and share as much as you're comfortable, but I'd love your definition of product management in 2025. And of course, my underlying assumption is with all of the change in the tool landscape that we've been offered over the last year, it feels like everything is changing. So from not necessarily a what, but a how we get things done. But I want your lens.
Yeah. And I think it's a great question, but I think the core values of product management are still there, right?
Right.
I think a great product manager is an individual that can actively listen to a situation, that has empathy to get a better understanding of what's happening, that has humbleness, that even though they have done that in the past, or they're even, a client themselves, they have that humbleness to be able to understand that not everybody lives the process the same way, and then has creativity to think outside the box, think outside of what everything has been done, and understand whether or not this is one of those places where you reuse what's been invented or you create something new. And then that you match that with level of effort. Like it'd be great if a product manager's role was only to imagine the world of the possible. But a real product manager, I always say their favorite word should be no. Maybe not their favorite, but definitely their most used word should be no. It's like no and, no but, not with, right? Because there's always going to be more than what we can do. And that truly defines great product management, is when you're seeked so much that you can't do it all and you have a backlog, that's success. And so when I think about a product manager, I think you need all those soft skills. Then you need the analytical mindset to take information and data and insights and make sure that you pair it with those kind of human aspects of people giving you information. And then you pair it off with this level of effort. Is it worth it? Is it not? Now, to your point, technology has given us an opportunity to perhaps expedite a lot of those pieces, right? Like now we can record this conversation and I can ask ChatGPT, hey, tell me the top 3 issues that Renee had told me through that process. Hey, tell me what are the questions I should have asked that I didn't ask to understand the problem better. Hey, if this takes 6 months, is it worth it based on the revenue numbers that Renee gave me? I can have all that, but judgment is still very human. The empathy to understand if this is a real big deal or a little deal, it's very human. There's a lot of things that I think technology in all its wonderfulness can give us, but I think it cannot yet, and hopefully ever, replace the human connection that it's needed to be a great product manager.
Yeah, I really appreciate this conversation. There's you call it human element. I almost call it art. So there's a scientific element of what we do that can be explained with numbers and spreadsheets and crunching. Like, go build me a business case, and it can come back with a really solid business case. What it can't do is it can't go into a customer meeting and observe their environment and be able to problem solve with the things that aren't in the environment, because you can make the connections that are very neural in nature and aren't scientific at this point. They're more art. So I really do, and judgment, right? Because it's not black and white. There's so many shades of trade-offs and whatnot that goes into a daily product manager's decision making, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I was given a class last week at UVA Darden, and I ended my presentation with, "Don't forget, people are people are people." Right? At the end of the day, the only reason why we build technology is so that people leverage it. And that is still so human. Like, yes, AI or anybody can tell you, hey, early adopters, you should make 15% of a new product, and then you go through the learning curve, and then all these things. But being able to understand, to really feel people's frustration when they're interacting with your product, or their excitement when they suddenly don't have to do something that they had to do before for 2 hours of their time now takes 2 minutes. Like, there is something there that feeds back into the ecosystem of feedback that truly creates great product. I think there's a difference between creating a decent product and perhaps one that maybe even works, and creating a great product that people actually want to use. And I think for that second one, a great product manager still needs all their humanity in their day-to-day job.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, and let it be noted that the role of product manager is not going away
No.
anytime soon. We may speed up a lot, but we're not going away.
I would be excited. I mean, we were even testing it like, hey, write this in Gherkin format language, right? I remember when I had to write, when I started, like, you know, as a product manager, if I click on button A, then these three actions should happen. Yes, like that'd be great. Somebody accelerate that process for me, write it in a way that my engineers can pick it up and get it done. But the what and the how, I think that's still very much on the product manager.
Yeah, exactly. Love that example, by the way. You know, how we work has changed fundamentally since COVID, and I would love your perspective on on whether or not, do you guys still have a flexible work environment, and if you do, and or if you're distributed, how do you really lead in a distributed environment when so much of what we do is collaborative, and requires iteration? A and B, how do you drive and reinforce the culture that makes the right decisions when we're not all in the room together?
Yeah. And I'll talk broadly because I think this is one space that I want to make sure that I share my opinions and not just the company's opinions, because sometimes those differ a little bit. But look, we are a hybrid slash very distributed. I think most companies, and funnily enough, through COVID, I changed companies. So I'm one of the products of that really truly got to see some of the benefits of that, which was when I joined Goldman Sachs and even at Berkadia, because that was kind of my switch, I suddenly had the world to really look at talent. And I think that's
Yeah,
we can't minimize what that means. It's extremely different for me to say, hey, I'm going to go to Dallas to hire my 10 product managers that I need to get this stuff out the ground versus saying, hey, I have the world. And as long as people fit into these buckets of the type of individual that I need, their willingness to work and their willingness to make an effort, I suddenly have, again, so much more talent. Both GS and Berkadia had people in many places in the United States, completely distributed, and as well as in India. So having that opportunity and being able to pull from the right talent, I think is tremendous. Now, to your point, that brings the challenge of like, well, how do you build culture? How do you grab the person that's in Arkansas to have the same person that's in Hyderabad in India to have the same culture or at least way of being when it comes to work and the relationships that we build at work? And I would say that's where I spend most of my time. And I think that's where most leaders spend most of their time. And the way you do that is one, by example, right? Like I will behave in the way that I expect my team to behave to my partners, to my peers, and to them. Two is over communicate. I think it's amazing that we can be distributed. I think it's amazing that we all have a little bit more flexibility than we used to. I think that comes with ownership for leadership to over communicate. What are we doing? Who are we? Why are we doing what we're doing? How will we get there? Be available for the questions, for the pushback, for the insights of people, right? We had you know it depends on the time of the industry. Commercial real estate, as you can imagine, is kind of a little bit not doing as good as it was a few years ago. But how do you choose to invest your dollars? Like I invest some of my dollars by going to places, by bringing my team together, by taking a few key individuals to meet with our clients face to face, right? And so understanding what you can do to create that culture and then building culture champions, right? Like I always tell my directs, I'm like, like you are responsible for the culture we come and people have every single day. And at the end of the day, we spend almost more time at work than we do at home. So building a culture that you want to be a part of is key. And I have no shame telling people, hey, I want this type of culture. We're not there yet. We take surveys, we look at the data, and then I give the ownership to the team. I say, hey guys, it seems that we're not doing a great job in this area. How do you guys propose we change that? Let's go try it. Let's actually be product managers to our own team culture about how do we solve these problems. Let's test things out. It didn't work. Great. Let's go back to the drawing board. How might we be more open? How might we have more communication? So, very long-winded way of saying we are hybrid in the sense we request people that are close to an office to come into the office 2 times a week. That's a tactical aspect of it. The truth is many of our hires the last 4 years have been remote because we went after the best talent. And having the best talent, in my personal opinion, outweighs having everybody together because it creates and it allows you to already start from a higher level. I have the best talent, and so now my entire focus is just to make them be able to do what they're good at versus saying, hey, I'm going to get the best possible talent at where I'm at. I feel like for me, having lived both as a team leader, um, honestly, post COVID, there's very little that I've seen that we lose because we're not together, especially with videos and all these opinions that we now or opportunities and products that we can leverage.
Yeah, yeah, I understand your perspective on that. How often do you guys get together?
Depends on which teams. So me, like my peers, we get together about once a quarter. Me and my directs get together about a quarter. And then depending on the initiative, like some initiatives require my teams and my engineer teams and all these teams to come closer together more often. Then we allow for that. We prioritize the same way you prioritize anything else, which are the initiatives that require a closer um, bringing together of sorts. And then we do that every time I go to India. I bring my entire team in India together so that at least we're creating some cultures, start doing some people from the US there, vice versa. So it really is extremely dependent. It's also dependent on the cycle of the industry. When the years are great, some of those things happen more often. When not so much, you need to get creative. But getting creative is not hard, right? Like you can do a virtual happy hour where everybody gets a kit or something and you guys all paint numbers together for an hour while talking. I think it might require a little bit more of a leader to do that, but I think you don't necessarily use humanity just because you're not sitting next to each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really respect the commitment to the flexible work environment, and the fact that you found a recipe for that. How does that recipe extend to hiring? Like, how do you think about hiring great PMs and leaders? And kind of a corollary to that is, are you able to hire anybody in a junior capacity, given everybody's kind of off on their own a lot?
Yeah, and look, I think it's a privilege to be able to be have a distributed workforce and for as an individual to work remote or partly remote. And with that comes expectations, right? Especially for the more junior individuals, like there's a lot of expectations of what does it mean to be remote. That doesn't mean that you're not working during work hours. It doesn't mean that you can multitask and watch your Netflix show at the same time, right? And some of that, it takes time, and especially if you're hiring somebody right out of school, it requires you to teach a little bit more things that you probably didn't have to teach 5, 10 years ago, right? Nobody taught me not to watch TV because I had to go into an office every single day from 8 to 7, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's definitely a little differences in the way we onboard individuals. But from a hiring perspective, I think it's given us that flexibility that maybe we didn't have. I've had the opportunity, the luck, and honestly, the privilege to work with so many different individuals in my career. And now, when I change jobs, or if I change jobs, I have the opportunity to give them a call, regardless of where I met them in life and where they are today, to say, hey, there's this great product that now I'm a part of, and I'd love for you to be a part of. And it doesn't matter for me if you're living now in San Francisco, in LA, in Philadelphia, or in New York City, to be able to create a team of the best people that I think I can find, and maybe even repeat individuals that I've worked with in the past, but that just happen not to live where I live right now. That gives me as a leader a ton of flexibility and honestly excitement of building that team out. Like I said before, the culture needs to be able to support it, right? Like you need to have really good tools that allow you to work together um, remotely. You need to hopefully have some type of budget to bring people together to solidify that culture or to send the kits so that you guys can all do things together. But I think more than not, it's possible. Now, a small caveat here. I actually love going into the office and I love interacting with people and just chatting. Um, but as a team leader, I care a lot more about having the right people doing the right thing every day of the week than where they sit.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Um, we have come to the part of the interview which makes me a little sad, but it's also my favorite part, so not too sad. Where we are going to ask a bunch of quick questions and answers. Are you ready for that?
I am ready. I actually
Oh,
did not prep so that it's the real thing.
uh-oh. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, first one. What makes a great product leader?
Empathy.
Yeah, I love that. What's your favorite tool right now? Why?
Work tool.
Yeah.
Chisel. It allows me to have a backlog of information in a way that a product manager actually wants to be talked versus others that are mostly built to own the backlog that are not as exciting for road mapping or trade-offs.
Interesting. I am not familiar with chisel, so I'm going to have to check that one out. All right.
Excellent.
My assumption is you're probably using Chat GPT or something
Oh,
similar.
yeah.
So this one is rooted in, because I think how you ask a question is so important, both with agents and without agents, honestly. So I would love to know if you've had a really cool experience asking an agent an insightful question recently.
I guess an insightful question is a very high bar for everything that I use ChatGPT for. We can't, at work, we actually have our own version of ChatGPT because we're a
Excellent.
very regulated industry. Um, but I have used it for everything and anything from how do I have this hard conversation to help me write a haiku for my son's fourth grade example because I needed to help him write a haiku on the cherry blossoms in DC, which is where we live. And I had no idea. I didn't remember how to write a haiku, but ChatGPT helped me out within seconds. So I would
Yeah.
say I have learned to, and I am forcing myself to use it a lot more than I perhaps would naturally do.
Yeah, I love that. I use it all the time for personal, by the
Yeah.
way. I use it all the time for helping my sons. My sons are a very different phase in their career. They're now trying to actually get a real job. So I'm like, how do I write do you have an internship for my job letter for my son? Um,
Exactly, but it's amazing. I love it. It's really fun.
exactly. All right, last question for you. Are you reading or listening to anything interesting right now?
I love reading. I just started the Let Them book, which is a great book, or at least where I'm at. One of my favorite books is also about making sure that you focus on what you can control and how, and maximizing the energy that you put into stuff. So I'm really excited about continuing reading Let Them.
Nice, very good. Well, listen, Egla, it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you better. I love all your stories, and there's just absolutely no doubt in my mind why you're one of our best chief product officers this year. Thank you for your generosity and your time, and sharing all your insights.
Thanks, Renee. I've had so much fun. I appreciate your time as well.